Welcome to the Exocortex Era, a podcast that is designed to leverage your mind. Today on the Exocortex Era, we're joined by Alexandre Tedoresco, Ensemble Montréal's candidate for city councillor. Alexandre is a creative tech builder who serves as vice president for strategic development and innovation at the Seven Fingers, also known in French as Les Sept Doigts, where he works at the frontier of live performance and emerging technologies. He also co-leads Entertain AI and has helped animate community life in Parc Notre-Dame-de-Grâce in Montreal. His campaign emphasizes concrete citizen-first improvements, modern sports, smarter flood protection. Montreal is an island, by the way, and a faster, more accessible city administration powered by responsible artificial intelligence. Did I miss anything there?
No, you got it. You got it. There's many more things, but I think that for today's
Well,
focus,
anything
it's
important
good.
that you want to convey to our listeners?
You said it. Montreal for me is it's fantastic. The amount of talent that we have here in the creative industries and the tech industry as well. But for me, I see the gap between the city as a whole, but also in City Hall, and we need to bridge that gap. It's unacceptable that we're leading the world in terms of AI research, but we're really dead last when it comes to city use cases. And I think we have an opportunity to change and to solve a lot of issues with the proper use of AI, among other things, because it's not only a question of technology, it's also a question of culture of innovation. And I think this is where I would like to focus on if we're elected on November 2nd.
Can you tell us a bit about your personal trajectory? What led you to being a candidate in Montreal's
Yeah,
election?
it's the convergence of a few things, right? So, like you mentioned, I am a cultural entrepreneur. I'm a creative executive. This company, Seven Fingers, is really we can be proud to have this type of company and Cirque du Soleil in Montreal that makes us shine around the world. And I think I've led our company, our collective, into brand new realms and territories in terms of exploring how new technologies can enhance the way we tell stories and create shows. And for me, it forced me to learn how to convince a group that, creatives, artists that have a certain way of looking at the world and doing things, and show them how new technology can actually help their mission, enhance their creativity. So that really allowed me to work with at this intersection of art and technology. Then I got involved into a much bigger mission with Entertain AI, which is the largest conference for creatives and technology together. And we had to face the same issues, the fundamental issues of, is AI good for art or bad? And so we were able to go and to walk along that narrow path and to find a way that we're all winning. And I think that really gave me the confidence that I'm able to bring this change, this cultural shift in the creative industries. At the same time, I was always very involved locally in my neighborhood in NDG. I built with some friends a nonprofit called the Rendezvous NDG, where we wanted to reactivate the hearts of our community. And I think we've proven that it can be done with the private sector and the public sector. And now it's a model for the whole city. And so I've always been very involved locally. And to be frank, for the past 8 years, because I've been interacting a lot with City Hall as a at the central City Hall, and I've always felt really frustrated with the lack of efficiency and how I see so many issues, so many problems in our street that can be solved if we have a different approach, right? So all this together converged in the past few months, last year, with a bunch of frustration inside. And I said, you know what? Instead of complaining, I need to do something about it. So I'm going to put my face on polls and see what I can do. And so I was friends with Soraya. She knew what it was about, that I could lead this type of really important change at City Hall. And so she asked me to join her in this race. And I think it's a really important race. If we miss this opportunity, this window now, we're going to be on a trajectory that is going to be really hard for us to come back from. So I think that that's why, you asked me this question, why now, why you, why this race? I think it's a long answer, but it explains the context and why I'm doing this, because I'm not looking for a new career. I think I'm on a mission, and after 4 years, if I do my job right, then Montreal will be set on a different path.
Oh, by the way, you mentioned Soraya. It's an international audience. They might not know her. So,
Yeah. So
could
Soraya
you?
is the head of the party. She's a fantastic leader. She was Minister of Economic Development and Tourism of Canada for years, and she's invested herself a lot into in innovation in Quebec, and she knows what it takes to build a thriving city in Montreal and to bring a different approach. So I really and you can tell she's a great leader because she was able to bring in people who are much better candidates in certain domains than her. So you need to surround yourself with better people than you to build a very solid team. So that's what she did.
By the way, you mentioned Montreal as an AI hub. Can you explain for those that don't know what AI is in Montreal?
Montreal is the birthplace of modern AI. We have Yoshua Bengio, who's a proud resident of Montreal, and he's the most cited researcher in the whole world when it comes to AI. He's a recipient of the Turing Prize. He co-founded Mila, which is the largest research hub in North America for AI. And this is just one, right? One researcher, one very famous one, but we have a whole ecosystem of tens of thousands of AI researchers in Montreal. When it comes to AI ethics and safety and fundamental research, deep learning. So we have everything that it takes here to really be a global leader in AI.
What's your intent in trying to connect City Hall, if you get elected, with this AI hub, this extraordinary AI hub? And you mentioned ethics, which is very important in AI. How do you plan to make sure that there's an ethical side to the introduction of AI in Montreal?
Yeah, let's take the first part of the question first. How do I intend to connect City Hall with this hub? Well, it's by, we're not at City Hall, we don't need to do fundamental research. We need to apply it, right? We need to solve real use cases of problems that our citizens have in their daily lives. So we need to come in and work with the research centers and entrepreneurs, the startups, right? To see how we can take what is coming out their labs and apply it at scale on our streets. That means that we don't need to be at a cutting edge, right? The issues that we need to solve for the city are quite simple, right? And we don't need the latest reasoning models that are coming out today. If we can just apply what was already out like 2 years ago when it comes to LLMs, for example, we're going to change the face of the city for forever. So this is when I mentioned that we need to work with the research centers is on a different level. We don't need to work on fundamental research level. That being said, we need to do a better job reconnecting with the startup scene, the ecosystem. For the past 8 years, innovation was really tinted with it had to be social innovation and community innovation, and we need to bring back, I think, the tech innovation that was kind of looked down upon for the past 8 years, and see those startup and entrepreneurs and AI experts as partners for the city. You know, we need to make it easy to work with those partners again. For me, it's mind-boggling that our best entrepreneurs, AI startups that do stuff in Montreal don't even want to start talking to the city because they say it's too complicated. So what they do, traffic management with AI, smart cameras. They don't even start with Montreal. They go to Drummondville, they go to Victoria, so they don't even start here. So we need to reestablish this. This is why we came out when we announced my candidacy that we will build an AI municipal hub for innovation, where we can bring the teams, on the different services of the city to work alongside startups and entrepreneurs to fix real issues, to come up with POCs, proof of concept, MVPs, beta testers, and have a constant type of hackathon where we can bring deep knowledge of issues and also expertise in tech solutions to help propel the new services of City Hall. So this is how we build bridge it.
By the way, the cities you mentioned are smaller cities in Quebec for our audience that might not
Yeah.
be aware of those cities. Is AI in Montreal collaborating with other major cities in the world?
To be honest, I've done the research, and I'm very saddened to see how far behind we've fallen. We have cities, all over the world. We don't even need to compare with Europe or the US. You have cities in South America and Africa that are using AI much, much, much better than we are now. You have, in Buenos Aires, they have, look at, there's so many ways, so different dimensions of where AI can play a role. Look at basic interaction with the city services. We have you have emails, you have 311 here, which you call someone and they basically read off of a website. Well, in Buenos Aires, from like 5 years ago, they decided to implement a chatbot called Boti, right? And now Boti manages tens of millions of interactions a year automatically and redispatches in different services. So why can't we do this in Montreal, where the technology is now way more advanced than it used to be? So and it saves them, tens of millions of dollars a year. Same thing in Estonia. Estonia is leading the world in terms of AI literacy, right? So same thing in Singapore. Singapore is investing $10,000 per citizen to level up and increase the AI literacy of every citizen, right? So when we start to compare with other cities, we're really not looking good. And so this is one thing that we need to really work on. We need to increase the level of literacy of elected officials, bureaucrats, and city employees, and residents as a whole. You look at one thing that it's when you compare yourself, you kind of are a bit saddened, or maybe you're inspired. I always mentioned this because for me it was a really defining moment in my wish to join the city for this. I was at South by Southwest. Maybe your international audience knows South by Southwest. It's the largest, most impressive techno, cultural, creative conference in the world. It takes place in Austin, and I was invited to speak on a panel on the future of entertainment. Okay, so I'm there sitting with amazing people, the people who built the Sphere in Las Vegas, and we were really talking about long-term sci-fi stuff in entertainment. Okay, and I came back actually and I wrote an article saying that basically the most impressive thing I heard on the panel after us was the IT director of the city of Kelowna, which is a small city in British Columbia in Canada in the west part. And basically with AI, they were able to go from a 6 months delay for a construction permit to 24 hours. Okay, this for me was crazy. Like, how can you do that? And at the same time, in Montreal, we went from 1 year average delay to 2 years. And so for me, that was unacceptable. So my point is that everywhere you look, everything that the city does can be improved with technology. And I think we need to be relentless and leave no stone unturned when it comes to improving our services.
Now we get to the second part of the question, the ethics part.
Yep.
Uh, we know that AI can be dangerous. Jeffrey Hinton always speaks about the dangers of AI, and Joshua Benjo also is very aware of the dangers of AI. So, what do you have to say about introducing AI in the city sphere in
Well,
terms of
it is
ethics?
this conversation can take hours because it can go on many different levels. It can be a philosophy debate, and it can be a very technical debate as well. I think we're lucky in Montreal to have already a very deep conversation on these issues, and it's about safety. It's about you really the role of the human in the future of technology, whether or not even useful at all. The rise of consciousness, we can debate that. The three levels of risk, the lack of losing how do you say truth, basically, so you cannot trust what you see on a screen anymore. So that would erode democracy and public discourse. I think we're seeing already a part of this debate and fight and battle with social media, the first iteration of that. You have then the second danger, which is the bad actor danger, where improved technology has always also opened the door for bad actors to use this improved technology to do bad things to us, terrorism, attacks, cyber security, all that stuff. So that's a second level. And the third level, which is a bit more sci-fi, is basically existential threat, the extinction of human race. So I think that is something that maybe I will leave for Silicon Valley luminaries to discuss and have their debate about what they call the P doom. Uh, but I think for us, if we city services, city politics is the closest, to the citizen, that in terms of, interaction. It's about picking up garbage. It's about maintaining the streets and infrastructure. It's about coordinating teams around the city to be efficient. It's about simplifying interaction with city officials. So it's very down to earth. I think we need to be focused there and let also very intelligent people, philosophers, higher grade politicians discuss the implications long term of that. What we can do, though, is to adhere to certain conventions. And coming back to Montreal, we were really early, talking about the ethical framework. And we came up, I think, in 2018 with la Déclaration de Montréal, which already established a few ground rules to make sure that models are trained ethically on data that is properly sourced, that there's attribution, there's retribution, there's a compensation, etc. I think there's also another, so we adhere to that, and I think we're really proud to have leaders thinking like that in Montreal. Secondly, I think there's a lot of debate now about the environmental cost of AI. And this is true. It is quite, shocking to see the amount of resources that are needed to train and to do inference on especially the cutting edge models. But again, we've so it's always a trade-off between using new technologies and using more resources. I used to do a lot of grants, and when I was at Seven Fingers, and grant application is in the cultural world, it can take a week, 2 weeks to do. So I give the example, right? The trade-off to people understand. If using an LLM to help me reduce that 2 week period to like a 1 day period to submit for the grant. Of course, I've used a lot of tokens to build the application. But at the same time, I was able to take it 2 weeks of work to 1 day. How many days have I saved in terms of transport for me, for my team, eating, going to bed, using all our resources? This is also a benefit from doing things faster. So it can't just be looking at the equation, oh, how many tokens have you used to do this with LLM? And therefore, how many watts of power have you used? It's also how much resources have you not spent going to the office for 2 weeks focusing on that, right? So it's a trade-off always. And what I'm really encouraged by is if you look at the curves of energy and cost per token, they're going down so fast. It's on scales bigger than the Moore's law. So it means that for every let's say measure of intelligence that we need to use at the city to solve all the issues that I mentioned before, we're using fractions and fractions and fractions of resources, energy, water, etc. So again, we're not going to push the envelope on the latest reasoning models and the cutting edge models from OpenAI and this and that. But we're going to, if we can use just open source models living on premise at the city, models that were good 2 years ago, we're going to be amazing, right? And so in terms of the environmental impact, it's going to be the least impactful, basically.
Well, now I'd like to talk about the core services and the infrastructure that could be modified by AI within City Hall and within the municipal administration. Do you have any comments on this?
Absolutely. The list is very long. And if I'm in office, we need to focus on where I think will be the low-hanging fruit and the most impact. If I don't know where your audience is located, but in Montreal, the number one issue is housing. If we don't fix housing, we cannot fix homelessness. If we don't fix homelessness, we cannot fix security in the streets, safety in the streets, cleanliness, and it's all interrelated, and it's all related back to housing. Housing, Montreal has done a really, really bad job in the past 8 years to allow for more housing to be done in the city for a bunch of good reasons, right? Financing, environmental protection, a bunch of other, restrictive parameters that people need to fill in. Basically, that's why I'm coming back to this. It's not okay that it takes more time to actually deliver a piece of paper, permit, right, than it takes to actually build the building. It's that can't happen, right? And especially when I see a city like Kelowna that was able to go from 6 months to, a day. So my first battleground will be this. And LLMs and modern AI are really amazing for specifically this to track and to create and to compare data and information in language basically against a database and deliver the permit. So that's going to be number one. Modern LLMs and simple automation tools could allow us to reduce by a big factor the amount of time that we wait for permits. So that's going to be number one. Um, Another thing that really we came out saying that we need to do is do a digital twin, right? To do simulation. Other cities around the world have had this for some time, and it actually helps city planners and the citizens to understand how something in their neighborhood, on their city, will affect their daily lives. If you want to build a new a highway or a bike path or a new park, what will be the impact during construction? And what will be the impacts after it's been built? How can you study quickly different scenarios? Because it takes years and years for consultation and committees and rounds of discussion. And we need to be faster and we need to be more like smarter about how to anticipate what will happen. It cannot just be always a surprise and to see after the fact, a year after, oh, we didn't anticipate this. Well, having a digital twin that can react in real time to public data of the city, this is a must for us to understand where we're going with the city. So in that, there will be a lot of AI used to collect the data, to understand it, to simulate. And I think AI is great at doing that. We're seeing now more and more examples of this in different cities, Singapore, the UAE, a lot of Asian cities are using digital twins now. So that would be a second thing that we can implement. Absolutely.
I don't want to take too much of your time, so I don't know if you want to continue or we might have you back for a second part. What do you prefer?
Well, I think that's a good a primer, I think, for the conversation. I don't want to reveal everything now, but to summarize, for me, this is not a challenge of technology alone. It's deeper than that. It's a challenge of changing the culture of innovation at the city. And typically it's never a question of tech, it's a question of how you manage change inside a team. We need to bring the teams of City Hall, the elected officials and the employees up the curve of trust in themselves and trust in the tech. And so we need to bring them, people don't change because they don't know. So if they don't know, they cannot see themselves as agent of change. So education, literacy needs to go up in terms of AI. And the beauty with this new wave of AI is that it's super easy to really to master, to see the results. It's not like the past wave where you had to be a data scientist, understand statistics deeply. Now you can just interact with the models and you see right away a positive impact in your daily life. So I think it's up to us to give the employees in the city this trust that they can use it for their benefit and find a clear example of high impact, low investment areas where we can really prove the benefit. So that's going to be the main challenge. And happy to come back on the podcast in the future to tell you how we're doing on so many different dimensions and services. And yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Alexandre. And we're looking forward to seeing you in part two.